thank you to our 3 sponsors for supporting our podcast. Johnny Russell's Art Caterers and Milltown Pies, who offer fantastic catering services, Alexander Grace Law, who provide modern and client-led legal services, and SBE Furnishings, who offer high-quality furnishings and electrical items at fantastic prices.
That's my debut, and then and after that, I didn't get many runs. I only got 15. I can't remember when I got out. I think Terry Lowe got me out. But I do remember taking a catch at point, and because everyone thought I dropped it, I had to remind them and reassure them that I had caught it. Because I caught it in my... So at point, it rolled up my hand into my arm. So when I'm on the floor like this, I went, I've caught it. I'm rolling around with ball in my body, so I didn't want to get a roasting off Stanley. I mean, I did get a couple of roastings off that year, but yeah.
So it didn't roll like... Can you remember that debut, Joe?
Yeah, I'd made my debut the season before, when we were short. I can remember Johnny's. I can remember him shouting, "I've caught it!" Because that game, Mickey Lee took a hat trick. On last 3 balls of the game to win.
Right. Exceptional second team bowler, exceptional.
Yeah, and that run out, Jez, started Paul Stanley's superstition of never watching the first ball of any game. So all the time that he was manager of our team.
I didn't know that, and I was always curious as to why he did that on the first team. So it used to make me a little bit nervous when he used to do it. When I'd be going out batting, he'd be like, "I'm not going to watch a ball to you at a run. All right, cheers." Yeah. It was a bit like, I mean, he must have had an heart attack when he watches against Bacup away. I mean, crikey. But yeah.
The other thing to note as well, Jez, is that me and Johnny were part of an extremely successful under-15s team that
I forgot about that.
They got onto the national. We got to the national finals, in which we should have won, but I got out sweeping. But we played in our normal Lancashire League group, and then we went all over the country after that. I mean, when I say all over the country, we went to Bolton and York, Penrith. We went to Penrith as well. And became
was
national...
that the district or was that Lowerhouse?
No, it was Lowerhouse. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So tell us who else are in that 15 side then.
So it would have been Johnny, Matt Walker, Max Howells, Ferg, Toxie Razak, me, Afraz Ali. Yeah, Afraz.
Ed Williams.
Yeah, Eddie Williams, Josh Whitehead, Ollie Baycat, and Aidan Holgate.
Brilliant, good side.
But back then, Joe, the likes of Max Howells were questioned when they were in this side because they were no way, shape or form an under 15. The shape of them, he was about 6'1", 14 stone. He just weren't an under 15-year-old. And it dawned on us when we got to York, which was like the final, because it was like 3 finals we went into. When we got to York, we played this side from Nottingham. I remember this left arm over bowling at me. He must have been about 6'4", and he were rapid. And I remember Matt Walker, because me and Matt Walker were I think it started as Joe and Matt who opened, and then one game we played Horwich away, and Joe weren't feeling well, so I took the spot, and we knocked him off. One day Max Howells was coming and started tanking it. that final got us through to Cumbria, and then we played Cumbria and got through to York. But I remember playing at York, and the sides that were there, it was just like, wow, have we really got here? The level was just ridiculous.
Yeah,
and we could have won. We should have won, really, but we came short. But it was an unbelievable journey. We went through a stage, Jez, where we played 10 games in a row, whether that was for Lowerhouse, the district. So playing these games at night, there were 20 over games, and they're playing for the district during the day. We played a district game against South Ribble at Longridge, and then we had to go and have fish and chips and then play Longridge at night. So we had a full day at Longridge, and it was genuinely it was amazing. It was a real incredible run.
Who ran the under-15s then? Who was like your manager? Stan did it, yeah.
Yeah, Stan and Joe. Would it have been someone like Colin Understone or Waity? It were Waity, yeah.
Right. I mean, it's probably a good point to come on to, because this housecast is listened to by people all over the world. So I think it's worth mentioning at this stage. People will know who Stan Eaton is, and for those who don't know, Stan is Johnny's uncle. So obviously you've grown up around cricket, you've grown up around Stan. Is there any stories or anything you can tell us about your uncle?
Oh, I mean, there's many, Jez. Ones that are appropriate for this, that's questionable. I mean, you can be the judge of that. Is there anything me and cricket? Nothing that springs to mind straight away. I mean,
Yeah.
I am blood related to him. I mean, he's my mum's brother. Somehow, one thing I have managed to inherit from him, although I wish it was some sort of cricket motivation, the only thing I've managed to inherit from him is the lack of calf muscles that we both have.
Right.
Stan must have the straightest leg I've ever seen,
Yeah.
as do I. So yeah, I mean, Stan's been great in my upbringing. He's the one who poached me from Reed at the early ages of 8. But cricket story wise, I mean, there's nothing that he's done. I mean, he did once nickname me Jonny the Bastard for a very good reason. If you want me to get into that one, we played Rami at home in an under 13s or under 15s game, I think it was, and I've hit this ball, edged it behind. Tom Parton's caught it, gone up. John Waite's umpiring, he hasn't given out. Obviously, I'm stood there perplexed. Tom Parton then come up to me and said, "Come on, Johnny, you did that, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah," and then I walked off. Stan, on the other hand, didn't see the funny side of that whatsoever and absolutely roasted me to the extent, once he calmed down, he said, "Hey, Johnny, we're going to have to toughen you up, therefore I'm going to nickname you Jonny the Bastard." And then ever since then, he's never really messed with me, to be honest with you. The minute he stepped out of line, I've put him in his place, because I mean, IQ differences, I mean, I'm cut above. So, I mean, cricket abilities as well. I mean, crap, he goes on about catching balls. I think he's caught COVID, you know what I mean? So, one of them.
Yeah, without a doubt. That's interesting,
you mentioned,
though. Go on, Joe.
I would say you mentioned you inherited these calf muscles. I've been speaking to a few of the lads at the club, and they say that you also might have inherited these running between the wickets skill levels. Because we have a running theme on this podcast that whoever used to on the batting with Stan used to get run out. And there are some people in the current first team who have suggested to me, when I've been doing my extensive research for this podcast, that you might also have a problem running between the wickets. Have you got anything to say about that?
Yeah. It's. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm never going to badmouth myself when it comes to batting, regardless of what it is. Unfortunately, the stats do prove otherwise. So, there has been more than a few occasions where I have been dismissed by run out. Whether that's something I've inherited from Stanley Eaton, I hope not. I think it's just a miscommunication between me and the other batting partner that I have. Usually it's their fault. But aside from that, I mean, Stan as well, I wish Stan was on this call, because he probably would fight our corner, because I mean, let's call it a collective, it's collective here, our corner. He would probably say that he's really good at running in between the wickets. I didn't watch him, unfortunately. I missed him throughout his career. I wish I did see some of his cricket events, because I'm sure some of them are amusing, which you could probably show me on a different moment. But Joe, I mean, you've played with me enough, Dooch. Not the best, obviously, when it comes to running. Mostly of them were Ben's fault.
Right, so that's that cleared up. But I can confirm Stan was horrendous. He was constantly at the centre of every game. There would be some incident where either someone got run out or there was a row because of Stan's running. And then, I mean, I don't know. I'll throw this open to debate. What about fielding, Dooch or Joe Martin, comparing Johnny with Stan?
Good Stan field. I don't know if he could. I've never seen him. But mind you, I'm not in the debate, am I?
Johnny is an excellent fielder. Very, very, very good slip fielder. Where me and Johnny frequent. But Johnny does get moved every now and again, which is bizarre. He's by far and away the best slip fielder, but then he'll get moved to some really obscure position because he's really fast at running.
I'm not, though. Yeah, but I'm not. They're all misperceptions, Jez. They're all misperceptions. They must say that, look at the size of his quads, he must be rapido like a Johan Blake. Well, I'm absolutely
but then they should say, look at the size of his calves. Obviously, he's not.
Yeah, exactly. Or look at the length of his feet. It's just not one of those. But you are right, that Joe. Actually, I've never really thought about it. I do get put in strange positions. I mean, at one point, I'm at silly leg, biting the opposition's head off, or I'm in first slip or leg slip for that matter, or I'm at sweeper or deep or cow corner. I don't know. I mean, to be fair to you, it's one of them as well. I mean, Ben or Charlie. Well, Charlie needed to be. Ben needs to be careful because I do have the tendency to switch off at some stage in the game. So having me on the edge is always the best idea. I mean, there was one occasion this year at Walsden away where Ben actually moved me because he's caught me talking to my dad and my girlfriend on the edge. So got moved into the ring after that, and I didn't enjoy the rest of the 35 overs I had to field. I must admit, it was
right.
So that were after 5 overs, Jez.
Right.
But I do have a ball spit with you, Joe. I do have a ball spit with you.
No.
On one of the podcasts the other week, it was mentioned that apparently there is no good slip fielders in our fielding side, and that we don't have any good slip catchers to the likes of Frankie if they bowl 90, 85 mile per hour. Can we just address this, please?
Yeah, I was more sort of talking about when I was playing in the first team. I don't ever remember you fielding at slip when I was playing in the first team.
I was a youngster, weren't I? So I used to get put farm to farm.
Exactly. So that's what I was talking about.
Character building. I mean, I'm very fortunate to not play with Jez because I would have had at least 2 black eyes and legs to fall back in.
Just one thing that you did mention there about a game at Walsden away. There's another game at Walsden away I wanted to bring up about an umpire that was mentioned a few weeks ago. We won't say his name, but he's lad Craig, who plays at church. You got given out LBW, and you didn't react to it particularly well. Came off ranting and raving, but unfortunately for you, it had been recorded on pitch vision, and the lads reviewed it. He was knocking all 3 over, but you'd already had this 35-minute rant about the umpire. Can you remember that?
Yeah, I can. Yeah,
there's a whiteboard involved as well, I think, wasn't there?
To be fair, Joe, it's a very touchy subject. Is that very touchy subject? I've not actually, I've not actually met up with Ken yet. I've not actually spoke to him about it. I don't think I ever will. To be fair, but I mean that's a separate matter. I'll have to deal with that myself. We played Norden at home. About the 3rd or 4th game into the season. We were batting second. They got a lot more. They got more than we had hoped. We sort of let it go a little bit coming to the last 10 overs of the fielding. So they got a lot of runs on the board, and we lost early wickets. I was sort of grafting. Wicket weren't great. Cheers, Stan. Wicket weren't great, so it was an hard graft. And I remember actually being comfortable. I was comfortable with the position I was in from batting tactics, shall we say. And I remember this medium pace. I don't remember his name. He's bowled this ball in swinging. Full length ball in swinging. Inside edged it, and I'm telling you now, listen, we all get dubious decisions. Every batsman is never happy the way they get out. Every LB is always challenged. This one, I guarantee you, was an ultimate firing. And I was getting a load of grief and a load of shit from the opposition. Why, I don't know. Why he'd give me shit, I don't know. They were getting into me, trying to get into my head. Obviously worked after I got fired. The ball, I've inside edged it into my ankle, right? He's fired. He's given me his finger. They've gone up, right, and I've stepped away from the wickets. It's on video. So there's evidence. I hope you can attach the video to the podcast because I want people to see this. Well, I walk away from the wickets. I think he's going to get me out here because this claim was so loud. I thought. Next thing you know, he's put finger up, and I've got me bat in. It's like a fucking shotgun. If it were one, I'd give him proper Expelliarmus. Fucking idiot, you bring Hit it, Ken, I've hit it. Take decision, I'm going like this, and all of a sudden they're like going bye. We're giving all this anyway. I've started walking behind. I've not hit the stumps to be fair. I've started walking behind. I've turned around again. I said, fucking shit. Anyway, I've carried on walking, faces. I've looked at the scoreboard. I've seen my name and my number. Obviously, fall off scoreboard. I thought, shaking my head. And all of a sudden, ball is about. It's about where that green mat is, where the waterworks is on the pitch, and their pro, who's an English lad, is coming over, and he was giving me loads of grief. Anyway, as he picks up the ball, he goes, "Enjoy your band, mate." I think you can fuck off as well. Anyway, I just walked off into the changing rooms then. But when I walked into the changing rooms, Blaise and Toxie were obviously bored watching me bat, which is no surprise. And they'd been drawing a load of stuff on the score on this whiteboard. Now I can't remember the content of the whiteboard, and I was that angry I actually can't remember what I said. But maybe Joe can touch upon this, and maybe we can obviously create it a little bit more. Because at the time it wasn't funny. I was fuming. I didn't give a shit about the ban. The game was, for me, the game was lost. I were at my wits' end with Ken, and I profusely refused to apologise to him which I didn't say anything, which he wrote comment on the on the review that he does at the end of the game. He actually wrote that I showed no remorse in terms of what I did, and I still don't. I don't agree with it, and I don't think I've ever spoke to him since.
What did you get for that?
Got a two-match ban. And a royal roasting off Stanley as well. He does remind me constantly that I cost him the league that year for that ban, which I heavily doubt with my performance for the season. But anyway, we'll move on.
And so what was the
that's
whiteboard
another
about?
podcast, another ban.
Another ban. I know these youngsters. What was the whiteboard?
You know what?
about?
As well, it's my first ever ban. Do you know what was that whiteboard? I can't remember it.
At the start of the season, do you know at the start of the season you get new theories about how you're gonna be the best team. So this year's theory was Francois, which was we're going to write down our aims for the game, what we're trying to achieve from the game, so then everybody knows and it's clear, and we're going to write them on this whiteboard. It lasted about 3 games before nobody could be bothered writing on the whiteboard. and on that particular game, Blaise and Toxey had rubbed everything out, and they were writing down everything that Jonny said on the whiteboard. And I thought someone had taken a picture and put it on the first team chat, and I was going to try and, but there's no picture, unfortunately.
There were one comment that made no sense, which is no surprise. I can't remember what it was. I remember them saying one comment, and they just kept touching on that one comment. I can't remember it.
But that happens a lot.
Yeah, it does. It does happen a lot.
I mean, we'll probably touch on it, Jez, but when we were getting the changing rooms done, Jonny wasn't happy with how they were being designed and how they were going. It were a rain-affected game at Rishton. We were trying to talk about what we'd want from the change rooms, and Jonny kept blurting in with different stuff. So we eventually said, right, nobody's allowed to talk.
No, this is incorrect.
Right,
that story's incorrect. What we were talking about, Jez, is the money that came from the supporters and what we were going to spend it on. We were discussing whether we were going to buy new covers.
Right.
Okay. Discussing what we're going to do with it. So the options were we're going to either buy 2020 kit, new covers, or do something else with it. And I remember everyone being led down, and I mean, I just can't do it, Jez. I can't sit still and just listen to this nonsense. So I have to have my input. So I'm blurting out a load of bollocks, loads of it, and I'm coming up with these ideas. And to me, these ideas make sense. These ideas are proper. These ideas are something that I do envisage, and I think they should happen, right? So then I'm getting challenged on it, and I said, "You're clueless. You don't have anything. I've got a business mind. So listen to me." And none of them. Blaise just weren't having it. He weren't having it. His arrogant self just weren't having it. And yeah, I didn't get anywhere with it. Unfortunately, I didn't get my own way. I think I wanted something as daft as like a milkshake maker at bar or something. I don't know.
We needed, but in order to get everybody's points across, Blaise decided that nobody were allowed to speak. Oh, yeah. So we had to, and we had a mug, so we were passing a mug around when you wanted to say something. So
I got my own mug. Yes.
Kept giving Jonny a mug.
That worked. That was
Blaise.
So that'd have been about when I was 18. That'd have been a long time ago.
Right. Would you say you've got less daft as you've got older, Jonny?
No, more daft.
No.
Yeah,
more daft.
I have. It's a little bit flawed, to be honest, Jess, because I try to be more like my dad every single day. He's a character. He makes Joe Beneducci piss his sides. He pisses himself. I don't think I've ever made Joe piss himself once. And to be fair, I actually think Joe Benucci doesn't like me. I think he can't stand me. And I think, it's a real issue for me. Especially when he's partnering with Francois when he's playing golf instead of myself. It's a real kick in the teeth for me. So, I've definitely got more daft, less bright, less intelligent.
Right. What do you think of that, Dooch? What have you? It sounds like a counselling session, this, but what's...
he's being paranoid. He's being paranoid. Yeah, of course I do.
Yeah, he loves me, Jez. He absolutely adores me. He's obsessed with me. He actually tried to be me once. He once tried to backlight me. He pulled it off, to be fair, but yeah.
Right.
However, they've also had a fight, Jez.
Right.
We've had a few fights.
No, Jez, this was not fair. Aslington away, warm up. What they do? I weren't even mouthy on this particular morning. I was just normal banter, doing a little thing. Me and Dooch, in this particular season, had this gag going on where we spoke to each other in this certain voice, and we loved it. We're proper good mates, proper good chubby mates. Me and my chubby mate. Anyway, next thing you know, he jumps on me, and I've got him on me, Charlie on me, and even Blaise on me, right? And they are beating me up on the pitch before a game. And I thought, is this character building or is this bullying? I couldn't differentiate the two. So it was just one of them. I just sort of took it like a man, and I think I got a duck that day and blamed it on them. It might have been the game though when Joe Dukes took a catch at mid off, and he broke it out of his finger or his thumb.
Dislocated my finger.
Good times.
I forgot about that.
Good times.
I mean, does that ring?
Fantastic
Does that sound familiar to you, Jez, at all? You know, dishing out a bit of.
Yeah, character building. Yeah, they're certainly not
Bit of-
bullying. Character building, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I think I'd have got some royal patience from you, Jez. I don't think my character. I don't think you'd have tolerated it very well. I mean, you know, I even struggle to stay quiet at the end of the game when you have your sort of debrief. I don't really.
Right.
It's still like that, to be honest with you. So yeah, I think I would have just stayed out of your way in those days.
Yeah. We'd have had to. We'd have had to maybe go to separate dressing rooms or something, Johnny. So you've got yourself, you get a few runs. Talk us, we get up to about the 2013 season when you've had a really quite a good year. What's your recollection of that year? Because you got quite a few runs that year.
Well, I mean, it's probably better going all the way from the start with the ones, because it was up and down, Jez. It was up and down. Right. 2010 was when I made my debut. We had Aaron Heel as professional.
Yeah.
Now, in that year, the pros that were in that league were exceptional. You had Amor Ali at Colne, you had John Smuts at Bacup, you had David Visa at Tomberden, you had Phil Hayes at Azzy. So, you know, the likes, I think he was, but the pros in that league were really good, especially the ones that were overseas from South Africa. But I remember making my debut in a 2020 game. How I came about getting the debut there in a 2020, I don't know. But yeah, I did. It was at Colne away. This is even when Gary, what's the agent called? Gary Hunt. He were even playing. And me and Fergus opened the batting. Fergus, luckily enough, had to face the first two overs of Amor in that game. He made 30. Did Ferg, and we put on I made 57 not out, and we put on about 130 for the game. And I remember fielding at 45. Or short term, man, whatever you want to call it. I remember just shitting myself, thinking, if Bolton's screwed, I don't want to stop this. I don't want this ball to come to him. So it's getting tight, this game, all the rest of it. And I'm already batting, all the rest of it. And obviously, it's the first time I've ever played first team cricket, so I didn't know what to expect. You know, irrelevant of the batting performance, it was just more of a case of shit. I'm fielding now. What's going to happen? And I remember, I'm adamant that Deck Bailey was sub fielding. Joe, am I right?
You are, because Paddy got hit in his head.
And he took a I don't remember that, but I remember Deck taking a couple of catches, and we won comfortably. And then after that, I made my league debut at home against Aki when Will Driver was there. He had a really good year, and I opened with Finchy, and that was the first time I ever sort of met and played with Finchy. Wow, what a player! That offside six. It's just first over he could do it. He actually once did it at Colne away against Amor Ali. This is a story. So we're playing Colne away. This is sort of mid-season, and he's Amor Ali first ball, Jez, offside six, right over at clubhouse, lost a brand new Duke. Right over at clubhouse, mate. It was massive, and I was just like, I would date my jaw just dropped. Anyway, ball after he's run a one. What real do? Anyway, so I'm facing him. First one, didn't see it. Just went past me back, didn't see it. Second ball, didn't see it. Third ball, cleaned up, absolutely cleaned up all the way. Stumps everywhere. But actually, he made. I mean, I opened with him for the rest of that year, and I think what was good for me, my development, was we never had less than 50 as an opening stand. So I might chip in with a couple of 20s. Remember having a 39 at church, batted a long time. I can't remember. It was rain affected. And then coming to the end of that season, we played Bacup at home, and I scored 88. So I was obviously that close to my first ton for Lowerhouse senior cricket, really. And we kept coming off for rain. I remember going back out, and obviously the overs got reduced. I remember going to play a ball, and I slipped on my back foot. As I slipped, the ball's just obviously gone up, and keepers took it. And I remember saying to my dad weeks and weeks before that game, and he still actually brings it up now sometimes. I need new spikes. My spikes have gone on my boots. And it haunted him for years after that. It was like, when I watched it, that was my fault. And he used to like bring it up and all the rest of it. But yeah, that's pretty much that season. It was a really good year. But then coming on to 2011, the year we won the league, I didn't have much involvement at all that year. I had a really, really bad year, really poor year performance-wise. I mean, that year I was really unfit as well. I had my appendicitis, so I had them out. So I weren't exercising or anything. I was on some strong medication for my face because I had acne back then, so I couldn't exercise on them either. So I was just really unfit and had a really poor year, to the point where Charlie put me in the twos to just sort of, number one, gain some confidence, get me back in the twos, get some confidence, and then, you know, sort of just make myself ready for the first team again. Because I think the year after, it sort of dawned on me that it is a huge step up from the twos, and I would suspect it still is now, because unfortunately I'm not playing much second team cricket these days. But back then it was certainly a huge step up. So I mean, that 2011 win, you know, I played a amount of, you know, a sort of amount of games that enabled me to get awarded with a medal, but in terms of performance, there weren't any contribution really from me. I mean, when I would play in the first, it would be batting at like 8, 9, 10, 11. So it wouldn't be 2012 until I came back with a bang, really.
Yeah. And what do you put that down to? You know, I remember you had appendicitis, you know, and you were obviously going through quite a bit then. Do you think it was just because you got fit and you came back, or had you worked on something within your batting to get yourself back into that form that you had in 2000 before 2011?
It's a good question. I mean, I think there's a contribution of all them factors, because the fact was, I mean, this is when I was at Thomas Whittam, Joe, so I was even playing football that I don't even play. You know, I was just getting, I did get really fit. But aside from that, I did put a lot of work in with my dad in the nets. I mean, that was something that sort of came about from the age of 13, 14 when we started going to the nets. Once the nets went up, I was always in there. So it was always a thing that I was working on my game. But I think it was more so, Jez, that it was just a new season, refreshed mindset. You know, I weren't panicking. I didn't have things on my mind. You know, at that age when I was in 2011, it was always a case of, shit, I really want to perform here. And I got worried and worked up. And Charlie was a tremendous captain, because he gave me the best advice. You know, he is a player who's very similar to me in how we go about our innings, and that is, don't give it much thought, just play. You know, do you and play how you see it. And I think that I'd advise most batters to play that way. You know, taking into consideration the circumstances of whatever the scenario was that you're going into batting. But put me into the second team, I've never regretted. I've never batted an eyelid. I've never complained. I've never moaned. I've just got on with it, because I think it was in essence, I think it was a really good thing to do in terms of my development first team cricket.
So what did you end up with in 2012? Can you remember? What sort of score runs did you get at the end of the season?
630 in the league. But that year, me and Ben had really good years that year, where we almost every game had a stand of 70 plus, which to me, still to this day, is something that as a team, whoever you are, if you know, I think it is down to set the tone, set the tempo of that innings. I think it's all down to the openers really to create that. You know, we got. I mean, Blaise touches on it a lot with regards to certain individuals. If you are opening and you're getting them stands, it's then up to one of them at least to push on. I think irrelevant of that, although he may be correct in some instances, I think it is a case of just getting a good opening stand and going from there.
No, I agree.
But I remember at the start of that year, it weren't a definite that I was going to be in the first team, following on from the previous year's performances, and obviously the actual performance I had in the seconds as well. What happened is I remember having a game for Lancs, because that was the time I was heavily involved with the Lancs setup. It was the under-19s, and we had a game at Southport and Birkdale at the first weekend of April. It was freezing, and I got 140 not out. And I think Charlie just gave me a phone call, and he just said, "Look, we're going to put you, going to give you a go, and we'll go from there." And I remember the opening game against East Lancs, Ocky was pro for them, and me and Ben made some runs. I got 60 odd, and we won comfortably. It's when the picture, Joe, of Ocky knocking Ocky stumps. There's a picture of it. I'm not sure if you've ever seen it. There's a picture of Ocky playing a defensive shot, and his stumps are everywhere. That was that game, and there's sort of the momentum was taken from there really for the rest of the year. I mean, we won the Worsley Cup final, and we won the league as well.
Yeah. And Jez, although in that 2011 season, Jonny didn't play or didn't bat that much or perform how he wanted, as someone who's grown up with him for a long time, there was never any kind of question that he wouldn't be one of the kind of Lancashire League Premier batters.
Yeah.
That was
I
never
agree.
in question. It was just one of those seasons, I think, where I think there was definitely a second team game at Rottenstall, Johnny. Where did you get like 130?
That was the year before.
Was it?
In the twos
Right.
before I made the first team debut. But that
got
year I did.
130. There were 20 overs left.
Yeah, I remember that. Reece and Sean behind, just as they put the new clubhouse up, Jez, or finishing up, and they were behind clubhouse, getting up balls and bringing them back. But that year we did play Rottenstall again. The year I did get dropped in the two, we did play Rottenstall a year again, and I got ball around my legs on 95 trying to sweep.
Of course.
I remember Frank Entwistle welcoming me at the club, because obviously he was trying to encourage me to just get back into the ones, and obviously being a happy place with my cricket. I remember him really congratulating me. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I used the 2011 season as leverage really to just sort of kick on from there and sort of prove myself. There's no two ways about it. You know, I don't think I've had as bad a year as that since. So
no. And there's some good players there. It's a good side, wasn't it? It was a good side around there. So you wouldn't be desperate to get back in, because you would know that, you know, good things are ahead, and you're still more than young enough to to establish yourself, which you did. So 2012, 2013, what's your memories around those two seasons?
Frankie, hats off to Frankie. I feel that, I mean, it's hard for me because unfortunately, obviously, I don't know the history of the first team. I don't know the history of Lowerhouse in terms of what they suffered with the defeats and performance. But for me, I'll be honest with you, there's been nothing but success. Irrelevant, you know, whether it be a league 2020 semi-final, runner-up, whatever, you know, we've always been up there. So I think since moving into that side, Frankie was around, and I think he was just he played a pivotal part really in just Lowerhouse's history, shall we say? Because for me, he completely transformed the first team's ethic, morale, performance. He revolutionised the fielding. I mean, the field on a Thursday night, I've heard it on the podcast that we mentioned on the other one with Francois. It was just so good. Regardless how intense it was just so good. It was just something that we actually really enjoyed doing. But whilst enjoying it, we were bettering our performance by such a long way that when it comes to the game days on the weekends, we were up for it. I think Frankie's not paid himself enough credit for that, because at the end of the day, regardless of how much shit he talks, he was class. He was class. He really were. I mean, the benefit to him as well, what people miss and what people forget, is irrelevant of him being a pro back then in 2012-13. He was a really young lad, and he was actually more suited to be hanging around with us lot than the likes of Dooch, Charlie, and Johnny Russell, etc. With no disrespect to them guys, because I remember countless times it'd been me, Joe, Paddy, Matt Walker, Sean Lewis. We'd be at Jules's living room playing on his Xbox. You know, we were mates with him, but at the same time, we respected him as a pro, and he never lowered himself to our level. You know, he just kept it about. I mean, he were fit. He was going crawl all the time. He had heaps of this bloody protein stuff on fridge in Jules's kitchen, and he'd go up in bench pressing. He was a maniac. But in terms of his cricketing ability and what he did, I think he played a massive part, irrelevant of certain individuals in that side. I think personally he was the main, the core really of everything sort of turning round in them 2 seasons.
Yeah, no,
three seasons, sorry.
Yeah, I do agree. A lot of people have said that he was the catalyst really that really kick-started it when we had such good players around there, but it was actually someone who came in we didn't, crikey, we looked forward to signing him, but didn't know a great deal about him, and he completely turned it around. What's your thoughts around that, dude? Because we've said this a few times. What Johnny's saying there, that they were more part of the really young Rugrats instead of your era of Rugrats.
Francois, he kind of fell in between two, really. And I think at times he did suffer from that because, he was probably older than you lot, but significantly younger than us lot. He did fall in that gap. But just to pick up on the point that you made there about training and the shape that we'd got in as a side around that time was special. And, 2011, 2012, I was right at the end of my playing career then, but the effort that people were going to on Thursday nights, the environment, the competitive nature of it was like phenomenal. It was an event in itself, and I think that obviously turned us into a bit of a machine. And this comes back to a point that I've made previously about momentum. You don't only get it if you're doing well, but it's a lot easier to foster that environment on Thursday nights or Tuesday nights or whenever it may be if you're going in the right direction as a team. I don't think you can perform and get to those levels at training if you're mid-table or you've not got much to play for, particularly not in the second half of a season. So I think it's like a bit of a circle effect where if you're doing well, everybody lifts it at training, and obviously that makes your performances on weekends better as well.
I mean, to touch on that point, Joe, I actually think it's had more of a negative impact sort of up to now because of how we made things back then. I think it's made Lowerhouse's expectations so high that, you know, in terms of maintaining that, it's been a challenge. You know, I don't think people give us enough credit for how well I think we are still doing or are doing. You know, just because we aren't winning leagues or winning Worsley Cups or winning 2020 competitions doesn't mean that, you know, we're not a really, really good side. And I think, again, just going back to that point, it's just a case of, because things were so good in terms of the performances we were putting in, you know, we weren't just beating teams, we were decimating them. You know, I think it was just something that the spectators were thinking, shit, you know, they mean business. And I think, you know, don't get me wrong, there's been a few occasions the year before where we have slackened. I mean, obviously I can't speak for the other, you know, the three teams I weren't present, but I just think that because of that change, we've raised that bar that high. It's been hard to achieve anything better, if not the same. But, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think we are we're doing in league soon.
I think one of this might sound like a really ridiculous point, but it's, you know, it's going to be 10 years ago since Francois came this season. And, you know, I was 16 and Jonny was 15, 16. And, 15, yeah, and as I say, this might sound ridiculous, but in terms of the standard of training, I can't do the same things that I used to do when I was 16. I know I'm only 26, but I can't. My body won't let me do it now. My back is in tatters. My hips and knees are shot at. But I still kind of work hard and train. I don't know how Jonny feels about that.
It's probably, Joe, because you run 400 kilometres a month and your ankles and hips click every time you walk a step. So I don't know. I mean, you know, as far as I'm concerned, Jez is in better nick than you. So maybe Jez can comment whether he can keep up the intensity of training.